Yay. All
And
right,
people
you
can
guys.
people can put their videos on now if
Yes,
they want
please feel free.
to.
Put your video on now. We earned this. Okay, welcome everyone. I'm super happy that you're here tonight. We're excited that you joined us for this quick casual Zoom to just talk about the power of peptides and what they can support, not just physically, but internally and mentally as well. Peptides are incredibly regenerative, and tonight is really about education and possibility. But before we dive in, I want to introduce myself. I know some of you, but I don't know others. And my name is Holly Henderson, and I am an advanced director here with LEMD. And I want to start by laying just a simple foundation for what peptides actually are. Now, peptides are short chains of amino acids. And when there are 50 or fewer amino acids, they're called peptides. When there are more than 50, they're considered proteins. And our body naturally produces many different peptides, and each one has a very specific role. Now, as we age, our natural peptide production starts to decline. You're probably familiar with collagen, which is actually one of the largest peptides in the body. Collagen is unique because it's too large to inject. So we typically support that, topically or orally. And just like collagen, many other peptides decline over time as well. For example, by around age 30, we've already lost close to 50% of our NAD, which is one of the most important peptides involved in cellular energy and repair. And that decline continues as we get older, which is why this conversation matters. Now, if you're already using peptides, you guys feel free to drop in the chat what you're using and how it's been supporting you if you're comfortable sharing. Hearing real experiences, you guys, is always really helpful. And I'll start a little bit by sharing my own story. And then you guys are going to hear from two incredible women tonight, each with a different experience and perspective. So, I've actually been in the fitness and nutrition space for about a decade. And before that, I worked in pediatrics, in the dental field in particular, for a little over 20 years. And I found my passion working with midlife women because I was experiencing so many of the same things that they were. I coached thousands of women virtually all over the world. And together, we navigated every bump along the way, from shifting away from the endless cardio to more strength training, from learning how to fuel properly instead of skipping meals because we just didn't have time. We learned how to understand hormones and lab work and cortisol and sleep and all of it. And it worked beautifully until it didn't. I started noticing that for some women, and eventually for myself, the foundations alone just weren't enough anymore. Now, I had spent years teaching that if you did these things consistently, you would look and feel amazing. And when my own body stopped responding, I honestly felt kind of a little bit like a fraud. Like maybe I had somehow misled people. Now, I was working with a hormone doctor who I loved, and she was brilliant, and she knew exactly what I did for a living, and she knew how much I loved to collect data from my labs to CGMs and everything in between. And when I went back to her feeling completely frustrated, she asked me a question, and she said, "Holly, have you ever considered experimenting with a small dose of a GLP?" And I remember thinking to myself, well, gosh, why would you even ask me that? And she looked at me and she said, I think you might be surprised. Why don't you treat it like a little experiment? A tiny dose is all you need. And then I want you to come back and I want you to tell me how it goes. And I have to tell you that that tiny dose of a GLP is exactly what opened the door to peptides for me. My foundations didn't change. I didn't stop eating well or strength training or caring about sleep or hormones, but my energy, my body, my confidence, how I felt in my skin absolutely did. And that's when I realized something really important. Adding another layer of support isn't cheating. It's responding to what your body is asking for at this stage of life. And that's why I'm here tonight. I'm here to share what I've learned and just open the conversation for others who feel like they're doing everything right, yet still feeling stuck, right? So, with that, I'd like to introduce you first to Samantha Taylor. She's a registered nurse of 18 years. She's a mom of three, a Mimi of two, and she has an extreme passion for wellness, growth, and longevity, helping others through education. So, welcome, Samantha. Take it
Thank you.
away. I'm
Thank you. Can
excited to
you hear
hear from
me?
you. I can hear you. Yes.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Hi everyone. I'm Samantha. And like Holly said, I am a nurse, I am a mom, I'm a wife, and a Mimi. Believe it or not, I have a 3-month-old grandbaby and a 2-year-old grandbaby. So they are just the light of my life. It's so much fun. And it's so funny hearing Holly speak because honestly, my story just sounds so much like Holly's. I initially, when I found peptides, I had been checking my hormones. I was working with a nurse practitioner and she did all my labs and checked my hormones. And even though I was having certain feelings of perimenopause, my labs actually came back pretty well and my hormone levels came back pretty well. And she, just like Holly was saying, asked me if I had ever thought of a GLP. And maybe this is what these nurse practitioners do. I don't know. Um, but I was honestly surprised that she asked me that. I think when I was talking to her and telling her like, I do all the things, I'm active, I eat well, but I just have this same like fatigue, um, exhaustion and just having a hard time with the same like 10 to 15 pounds that no matter what I did, it always came back. So I was always into cardio. Cardio was like my favorite thing. And now I'm learning that cardio isn't the thing to do. So I used to go to spinning classes. I had my Peloton bike, and probably a couple years ago, I got into running. And I would run about 4 to 5 miles, 3 to 4 days a week, I would say. And I loved running. It worked well for me mentally. It was like my space where I could go outside, enjoy, the nature, and but my body did not love running. I had a hip injury where I had to go to PT. And then, that healed, and then I started running again. And then I had a IT band injury. I healed that. And then this last year, I had a foot injury. And the foot injury was what literally stopped my running in my tracks. I haven't ran since I had that foot injury, even though I want to. I just can't. So I started doing other things. I started strength training, getting stronger. And I took that nurse practitioner's advice. I kind of did my own research, but I did it the wrong way. And I went to the gray market, which, if you've heard of the gray market, those are people that are looking for peptides that, they're maybe you're wanting to get a deal on them because they're not cheap. They're meant to help you. And so that is how I did it. Did it in secret. I didn't tell anybody that I was doing it. And when as a nurse and I would get my vials and they would say on them, not for human use. So if you know anything about gray market, you can buy peptides online anywhere. They come from places that aren't, you know, sourced. They're not safe. I mean, they can come from anywhere, especially now these days. I think back when I was using them, it wasn't as unsafe. But every time I got that vial and it said not for human use, I'm telling you, it felt so wrong. And so then I stumbled across this telehealth space where it is monitored, and has medical nurse practitioners and or doctors and DOs overseeing your care, and that just felt right. And so I started using the peptides that way. And anyways, I started the GLP, and I was blown away by how I felt on it. I never knew how much inflammation I had until I lost it. I look back at pictures and, I had bloating or just inflammation in my face. And when you lose that, that's when you really notice that it does something for you. So there's so many more benefits to GLPs as far as weight loss, but that's the one that I first started. And then I started researching more and learning about other peptides and how they can help. Um, and so they literally have changed my life. They truly have. Um, and if I have anything to say, if you're hesitant about trying peptides, I think the best thing that I would say is that they are safe. They're very safe. They're very low risk and they work. And so what's nice is it's not doing something for your body. It's basically just sending a little message to your body to do what it's supposed to do. So like Holly said, as we age, and this is when I noticed it was as soon as I turned 40. I remember hearing people say when I was in my 20s and my 30s, oh gosh, when you get to 40, it's like everything halts. And I never believed it. I thought that's not going to happen to me. I've always been, I just didn't think it would happen, but it truly is. And maybe it was when I became a grandma, I don't know. Um, but things halt, your hormones change, and peptides have truly changed my life. And so I'm just grateful for them and just learning. So I do encourage you guys to all do your own research. There's so much information, be careful where you get your information, but definitely do your own research and then come back to one of us and ask questions because that's what we're here for. So thanks for having me, Holly.
Yeah, absolutely. And Stephanie, I mean, Samantha, you need to tell me, like, what was your transformation like? Like, how much weight did you lose?
Oh, so in the very beginning, I probably lost about 10 pounds just from running in general. And then we had taken a trip to Mexico in July, and that's when I came back and I've lost about 30 more pounds.
Good
So
for
this is
you.
where I feel comfortable. I'm not trying to lose anymore. And so now I'm just microdosing, which if you haven't learned about microdosing, um, kind of look into it because there's some people who maybe have a lot to lose and microdosing might not be for them, but once you lose that and you feel comfortable where you are, microdosing has so many benefits just to maintain where you're at, and then so much longevity benefits that I'm really learning about. So
Yeah, they're pretty incredible. And I couldn't agree more as far as the inflammation goes. I don't think many of us realize how inflamed we are until we're not.
yeah.
And that is pretty profound. And the other thing that I think is pretty amazing is that, the root cause of so many autoimmune conditions, and just diseases in general is inflammation. And so when you get that inflammation down, your body really does start to respond favorably in so many ways, which is why I think so many feel such great benefits, even just being on a very tiny dose of a GLP. So yeah, thanks so much for sharing your story. I appreciate it.
Thank you for
I,
having me.
yeah. Now we have Stephanie. Stephanie is a pediatric occupational therapist and midlife health coach who transformed her own menopause journey into a mission to help women feel strong, energized, and supported through nutrition, strength training, and peptide therapy. Stephanie, I'm so excited to have you here as well. Stephanie and I have actually worked together for quite some time. She was actually a client of mine. For quite a while, and she and I actually kind of hit a wall together, which I'm so grateful. I'm just so grateful we were on this journey together. We
Yeah.
did some troubleshooting, and I was really able to just share everything that I was learning along the way. So, welcome, Stephanie. I can't wait to hear about your story. I know you have some amazing data that you got today.
I do.
So I'm excited to hear from you. So take it away.
Yes. Well, thank you. Hi, everybody. Well, if you are on this call and you are in menopause, this story may, resonate with you. Like Holly was just saying, we shared a few stories together on our journey. But yes, I have been a pediatric occupational therapy for, oh gosh, like 34 years. So a long time. I've been in, health and science and always have been in the wellness space in terms of always healthy eating. I'm a fitness instructor. I'm a, avid tennis player. And I started to really dial in my health and wellness in perimenopause, kind of how I met Holly actually as my coach, and started learning how to count macros and intermittent fast and not do as much cardio, even though I am a spin instructor, but I have backed off on that quite a bit. And I was doing fabulous, getting toward my goal weight because, like everybody else, I hit perimenopause and everything that I was doing wasn't working. And from there, loved, that space so much. I did become, a health and wellness coach under Holly with Holly and started teaching women how to, learn all those foundations that Holly talked about. In September of 2024, I had a complete hysterectomy. And, that just the physical part of recovering from the hysterectomy was nothing compared to the fact that I lost all of my hormones because I was not in menopause. And talking to my surgeon at the time, I went in there and I said, okay, what's going to happen to my hormones? And he kind of looked at me like a deer caught in the headlights and said, oh, I don't know anything about hormones. I'm just going to give you a patch. So I just went through the surgery, and that was in September. By January, I was out of my mind. That's the only way I can define it. I was losing my hair. My skin was a mess. I gained 10 pounds literally. It felt like overnight. I was definitely depressed. And here I was teaching women to learn these foundations, and behind the scenes was falling apart. So I did all the things. I dialed it in even tighter. I started reverse dieting to give my body rest and not to be in a deficit. We did that for, God, I think 12, maybe 3 or 4 months. And then we tried deficit dieting again and to see if maybe we could jumpstart the metabolism. I might have lost 2 or 3 pounds here and there. It would come off, it would come back on. And at that time, Holly was, announced that she had explored some microdosing. And I was like, I'll never do a GLP. Like, no, that's not for me. And then I was like, you know what? I need to do something. And, listening to Holly and what she was doing, I respect her so much in this health and wellness space. So I had been seeing a functional medicine practitioner because I started on bioidentical hormones, compounded similar to the way that our peptides here at LEMD are compounded. So I went to her and I said, okay, I want to try this, but I only want to try it for like 8 weeks and then I'll take data because I'm a huge data girl. And so she said, that's great. There's a lot of great data. She started me on semaglutide, and within week 2, I could feel the difference. And I think, like Samantha was saying, and Holly, the inflammation, number one, my body from having surgery, I don't know what was going on from just being in menopause and having such hormonal dysregulation, the inflammation was awful. And that was really the first thing I felt. My sleep started to get better. My energy was better. And then the weight started to come off. Now, I was only microdosing. But the weight was coming off, and it was coming off the way I needed it to come off because I still wanted to hit my macros every day. I still wanted to strength train. I still wanted all those foundations like Holly had talked about. And so I started that in September of this year. So exactly 1 year after I had a hysterectomy. And my results, I mean, I couldn't be happier. I texted Holly this morning and was like, I take data every month because I love data, like I said. And I've lost 15 pounds by microdosing, but keeping my foundations the same. And in my body fat was 22.7% when I started in September. It's now down to 14.3%. My skeletal muscle mass went up from 64.4 pounds to 82 pounds. So my lean mass has increased. My visceral fat was a 7. It's now a 4. So I reduced my metabolic risk marker, which is so exciting. And my metabolic age, I laugh at this because I'm 53, you guys. I'm going to be 54 in January, but it's now 39, just so you know. And I'm staying with that number. So anyway, I mean, I now have followed Holly, brand partner with her on her team, and Samantha, and um, I this has saved my life. I really feel like at the age of 53, I feel better than I did before when I was in perimenopause, and that is the honest to God truth. You're doing this naturally for your body. You're signaling your body to tell it what to do when it just has stopped doing what it's supposed to do. Um, and people say, aren't you going to be worried that you're losing your muscle? Obviously, by my data, I have not lost my muscle. I have not lost. I don't have Ozempic face. You get all that from people. No, I don't have any of that. And um, yeah, I could talk about it all day, so I'm not going to because I only have 5 minutes.
Oh my gosh, Stephanie, I'm so happy for you. I know this has been like a long time coming and you have trusted the process, you followed along.
Yes,
You guys, we were deep into like macro tracking and we were dialing things in and we were making adjustments.
yes,
And
you
really,
were.
when I say you get to that point where, as a coach, I was like, I don't know what else to do. And so when I hit that wall too, I knew that I needed an additional layer of support. And I knew that if I needed it, there were other people that needed it too. And I too, like Samantha, went down the gray market first. My husband and I both did. We were reconstituting our peptides on the kitchen counter with our glasses on and Googling, how much bacteriostatic water to put in it. And I looked at my husband and I was like, okay, this is not okay. Like, I need something I can share with my midlife ladies. This is not it. And so I went back to researching some more and was so happy when I found this telehealth company. This is like top notch. I'm talking, when you check all the boxes, for quality, for sourcing, for medical oversight, like all of those things should be non-negotiables if you are considering peptides. End of story, in my opinion. Okay. So thank you guys so much for sharing. Does anybody have any questions before we wrap it up? I would love to, Samantha, Stephanie, you guys can answer some questions too if anybody has
Yeah,
any.
there was a question about data, and I can just answer how I do
Yeah.
my data. I
Yeah.
mean, I use the Hume Health Scale, which I love. I also take my own measurements every month. So I'll do everything in that day. So I'll do my weight. I don't weigh myself every day, by the way. I once a month I'll weigh, I'll do my measurements like, around my arms, my waist, my hips, my thighs, my calves. I'll do the Hume Health. And then what I do is I generate a report from the date of when I started till now, which it does. So it's fabulous. So that's how I get my data. And then of course how I feel, biofeedback, like how I'm feeling.
Yes,
Because
absolutely.
that's super important too, is, you can have it, and the scale does not represent, right? Like I haven't really lost any more weight in the last
Mhm.
few weeks. Um, but my body composition has definitely changed.
Changing.
So don't always just go by the scale. I think it's important that you take all that data.
Yes, absolutely. Biofeedback markers are huge. Anyways, this is the scale, the Hume scale, just in case you're wondering what that is. You can get these online, and this basically pulls up, and that's why she's getting all those other measurements from. And there's an app on your phone, so you can take when you grab onto these right here, and you're going to pull this up when you stand on it, and you get your weight, and then on your phone, you'll get all sorts of other data. And that's the data that she is referring to, just in case you guys were curious about that.
Holly, I can answer. There's a question in the chat box.
Yeah.
JW, you were asking, um, wouldn't you need to keep increasing the dose in order to continue seeing the benefits or to continue quieting the food noise? Some say after a while the food noise starts to come back. I actually only increased my dose one time. So depending on if you're microdosing or you're on the weight loss dose, you would increase. And I tried to tell people, obviously I'm not a doctor and I can't give medical advice, but wherever you're at a happy medium where if you're losing and that's your goal, um, you know, that's where you want to be. So the way that I started microdosing was I actually forgot to give myself a dose. And then I had gone 2 weeks and I didn't notice very much food noise coming back. And then at a little bit about 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, I kind of started noticing a little bit. And that's how I kind of decided to microdose, was because I was at the point where I didn't want to lose any more, but I still wanted the benefits of kind of keeping that food noise away, and also keeping the inflammation down. So I think I kind of stumbled across microdosing, because I, missed a dose, or and then I ended up going back down just to the minimum amount. So
Yeah.
I don't
And
know
I
if that
think
answers.
I think I think that's a common like concern amongst a lot of people once they start. And I can tell you that that sweet spot, we're kind of looking for that sweet spot, and that sweet spot's going to be different for everybody. Um, but we want the quieting of the food noise, but we don't want the appetite to be completely suppressed. So we have to make sure that we, find that area. And again, that's going to be different for everyone. So some people, a therapeutic microdose of tirzepatide is 2.5 milligrams. And some people on tirzepatide, when they're microdosing, they never need that. You might be able to get what you need at 1 milligram, and other people might need that full 2.5 milligrams. For semaglutide, it's a little bit different. Typically, what I have seen is people who microdose semaglutide often end up needing to get to that 25 units, which is the therapeutic microdose for semaglutide. So it's just different. There's not one that's better than the other. Everybody's body is so different. And it is kind of, I would say, a little bit of like a trial and error, kind of like figuring out kind of what your sweet spot is and what works really well for you. And definitely finding that zone. Like you need to find it where you still can get in all of your nutrients, right? And you have just enough of that quieting of the food noise. And you'll know when you get there. I feel like you do. I feel like you definitely know when you've hit that spot. And then that's typically where you stay, right? That's typically where you can stay for a while. But for some people, they might need to adjust that, as time goes on, and for others, maybe not. Okay.
There is a,
Um,
I can answer this other question, Holly, if you want me to. It's
sure.
addressed to me. In terms of the muscle mass and the decrease in body fat, so I started taking my data on a microdose from September to now. But remember, I was also heavy lifting and eating all of my macros, like really focusing on protein intake for quite some time. So I think I had muscle under there, but I had to get rid of some of the fat that was surrounding it. So, I started with some good foundations, and maybe that's why I have progressed so quickly. And I also think, really focusing on building that muscle, you have to focus on your nutrition. I mean, it's super
I'm
important.
watching this with
Yeah.
So,
Sam.
No,
yeah.
Go
absolutely.
ahead.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's huge. So if I have about 50 pounds to lose, would a full dose be better than a microdose? A weight loss dose would be better for you than a microdose. Yes. Typically, I would recommend a microdose to anybody who honestly really has maybe 10, maybe 15 pounds to lose. You could get by with microdosing and be able to see, some benefits for sure, some weight loss benefits. But for you to be successful, I would say yes. For 50 pounds, you'd want the weight loss dose. And there's BMI requirements. Um, and that would probably determine kind of where you fell within that realm. Kathy, if you're not looking to lose weight, you just want to get rid of inflammation and gain muscle, can peptides help? Yeah, absolutely. There are actually quite a few peptides that help reduce inflammation. Um, as far as gaining the muscle, if you are strength training, I think this is one of the biggest things that is so hard for us in midlife is we know now that we have to lift heavy. But oftentimes many of us are then starting to lift heavy, but we're not seeing like the results of everything that we're putting into it, right? And this is where a growth hormone peptide can really come in to play if that's something that you are looking for, which will also help reduce inflammation and also help with that muscle growth as well. So yeah, peptides could definitely help with that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Tina, will doctor be the one to discuss what we are comfortable with dose-wise? I'm worried about the side effects. Tina, yeah. So what I love about LEMD is we now have an opportunity for you to consult with a doctor prior to ordering your peptides. Before, it used to be where you ordered your peptides and then you got connected to a doctor network, and then you would be paired with a doctor who would oversee your intake form and make sure that the peptide that you were hoping to or that you were purchasing aligned with everything that you included on the intake form, right? Because we need to make sure there's no contraindications with anything else that you're taking. And I love that level of oversight. But all the feedback that we've got is that some people want to talk to a doctor prior to ordering the peptides. So there is a fee for this. It's a $50 fee to schedule a doctor consult. And when you have your consult, you immediately get a $25 coupon back towards the purchase of a peptide. So essentially, it's like $25 for the consult. But this could be where you could run all this information by a doctor, make sure it's going to be a good fit for you and that sort of thing before ordering. Side effects, I just did a video on this because I think it's so important. I always like to recommend my clients to, obviously I'm not a doctor, none of us are right here, but there's no harm in starting with half of your prescribed dose. Like there's no harm. And I feel like that's such a safe place for people to come in. It gives you an opportunity to onboard the prescription to see how your body responds. Some people don't feel much during that first week, but that's better than feeling, like poop. And I'm speaking from experience because I didn't know that ahead of time. And I started with the full therapeutic microdose. And I was laid out for 3 days. It was awful. I could not understand why people thought microdosing was wonderful. And I didn't care what the benefits were. I felt so awful. And it was just that I had way too much. Like I didn't need that. And now I have a lot of my clients start with just half that dose the first time, and some of them end up staying there. Some of them just, go up 5, units or 10 units or come back down, and some need the full therapeutic dose. Everybody's different, but by starting with half of your dose and then working your way up, it's just such a safe way to avoid all of those side effects, for sure. Um, Would taking GHKCU injection subcutaneously be more effective and better results than taking a liposomal form? In my opinion, yes. In my opinion, yes, absolutely. Anytime you can bypass any sort of digestion, you are going to benefit, from so much more of it. So yes, I think an injection form is definitely doesn't mean that the liposomal form doesn't work, but I think for you to get the most bang for your buck, an injection form of GHKCU is where it's at. One last question. Pre-diabetic and cholesterol issues. Peptides help. Oh, yes, absolutely. And this is where I think a GLP is just so perfect. It really is. Um, I'm very excited to have my lab work done since I've been consistently on peptides next month. But my cholesterol was starting to tick up a little bit. And I know so many people. Stephanie, have you had your cholesterol done since you started?
Yeah, so my cholesterol has always been good. So
Okay.
I didn't have anything creep up, but the pre-diabetes actually, when I started on the microdose, that's the first thing my functional medical practitioner said to me. She's like, there's a lot of great research, and I have diabetes on both sides of my family, like my parents on both and grandparents on both sides. Um, I was still pre-diabetic, which is crazy, but I do have blood work in May, so it'll be interesting to make sure that everything is still
I
shifting.
love that. That's
Yeah.
great. Yeah, I think it would absolutely be wonderful. Okay, one last question, then we'll wrap this up. Is it best to take certain peptides together at the same time, such as BPC, TB500, MOTS-c, for example, because they work better together synergistically? Are all the peptides you sell are from pharmaceutical grade? Sorry if I missed this. Yeah, so every peptide is going to be a little bit different as far as when they're going to be best administered. Oftentimes, this is something we get through, like research. There are like the growth hormone peptides. We know they're best taken in the evening when our body produces growth hormone naturally. So some peptides, yes, do support, better timing. BPC 157, TB 500, yeah, definitely. Probably, I would say if you wanted to, definitely in the evening. And the only reason I'm thinking that is because that's when you're doing a lot of your restorative work, and that's a very regenerative peptide. So it would make sense that that would work best in the evening. My husband takes his in the morning. So I don't, there's not like a hard, fast rule there. Um, So, you don't have to worry about, you don't have to worry about that. But more importantly, I think it is really just to be consistent with it. So if you have a peptide that you like, that you are using, you being consistent with that so you get the most benefit from it is going to be the most important. And yes, all of these are pharmaceutical grade. They are coming from our compounding 503A pharmacy, which is in Houston. It's called Clover Pharmacy. It is our exclusive pharmacy. And then we have doctor networks in all 50 states so that we can get these prescriptions to you. And I have to tell you guys, they come, so discreetly with everything that you need, which is so different than any sort of research peptide. But you really do. It comes FedEx, 2 day shipping on a cooler pack. With your syringes, your alcohol swabs, a how to inject guide. Like it really doesn't get more straightforward than that. And when you partner with any of these ladies up here or myself, you have access to a private customer only support group that we have created for questions and tips, and just the collective wisdom of the community is amazing. Because there's a lot of questions that come up when you start peptides, right? Most of us are not really comfortable with this. We don't know a lot about it. So I love that we have been able to create this space for you guys to be able to join in and to be a part of that. Okay. So I just want to say thank you guys. Thanks, Samantha. Thanks, Stephanie, for sharing so openly and honestly tonight. It takes courage to tell your story, and I know it resonates with so many people. I truly do appreciate you. So if something landed for you tonight, or if any questions keep coming up, please reach back out to the person who invited you here. That's what we're here for. You don't have to have it all figured out. Sometimes it's as simple as saying, here's what I'm feeling. Is there something kind of like you guys did here in the chat, right? Here's what I'm feeling. Is there something that could potentially support this? And we'll help point you in the right direction of that. One of the things I love most about LEMD is the emphasis on education. On the site, you can read through the benefits of each and every product. There are FAQs, there is scientific literature documented there so that you can make an informed decision kind of at your own pace. And then we also host ongoing education every Thursday night with different doctors and specialists and educators who go deeper into these different topics. So this space really is about preventative health and supporting your body, not just for today, but for all the years ahead. That long-term perspective, I think, really matters here. So thank you guys so much for being here. It was fun. Thanks for sticking around while I figured out all my technology stuff. All right, ladies, have a great night.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.